yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, I love it, I love my HBCU. And man.
Episode 262 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports, from institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics, to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with co-host Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, as I told you earlier, what they're working on. But I have none other than the clinical professor, A.D. Drew. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. As I said, we're actually on the road, giving you a live streaming backdrop. We'll even maybe give you a glimpse of the game. You can go to my JVN to watch the game as well. My BCSN to see the game. .net to see the games if you want to see it live if you hadn't seen. Some really good games going on here. And who is that? I need to call one of the lab listeners out. Talking about can they sign the roll and leave? You know you can't sign the roll. This is a doctor, professor, man. You got to give 15 minutes. And plus, you know, in my class, you better not leave. I'm going to put that 0 in your life when I show up. If you ain't got a text message from me, we coming through. Don't try that around here. I can't believe this, lab listeners. No, I see y'all in the house, so no problem with it. Drew, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing fine, Dr. Cavil. I'm doing fine. You know, when you get to those grad level classes that allow you to take the class online, but you got to show up on campus, you know, once a year or once every other semester or something like that. That's what this is for us today, Dr. Cavil. You know, I've been teaching the class online and subbing for you online and doing the clinical professorship online. Now you didn't make me come to campus, but you told me I had to come to this conference, and today the conference is at the Tyson Foods Black College World Series.
Now, see, this is what's nice for Texas Southern University. I got to get this plug in. Whether it's at the BS Sport Management Program, MS in Sports Studies and Sports Leadership, and now the doctorate in terms of a concentration in sports education, doctorate in curriculum instruction. These are the kind of things that I really like to do because we do live things where you get embedded not only in the knowledge of sports, but you actually get to put stuff in practice. So I create relationships through all the league, whether it's conference office, whether it's entrepreneur spirits and stuff like that, or some of the larger in terms of college and sports franchises. You find it out. Before we go any further, I'd be remiss if I didn't keep this updated. In terms of Delaware State, President says sheriff's comments, body cam image raised questions. We gave you an update in terms of what was out there in terms of many formats. And then the sheriff responded. Mike told you that update and gave you his perspective. But as this statement, events continue to unfold, the Delaware State University President Tony Allen said the Liberty County Sheriff's statement and deputy's body camera raised, quote, raised more questions than answers, end quote, in a statement Wednesday. Allen said he spoke directly to the Sheriff William Bowen on Tuesday about the April 20th incident on I-95 in Georgia when the DSU women's lacrosse team bus was stopped by deputies who cited a minor traffic violation and then searched for drugs. The incident has made national headlines, and this is courtesy of Delaware Online. Quote, Sheriff Bowen insists the personal items were not searched. End quote, Allen said, quote, the video clearly shows officers searching toiletries and clothing and even cutting open a family graduation gift. Quote, Sheriff Bowen said the officers were unaware of the nature of the passengers on the bus. The audio clearly demonstrates that the officers were aware both that this was a busload of schoolgirls and that they did not expect to find anything other than marijuana, which the officers who entered the bus said they were not looking for, end quote. So this will continue to shake out, but it's truly disturbing when you hear what you know from the video, what you've seen with your own eyes, your experiences, but then the sheriff coming out basically just denied it, didn't take any questions as if we can't hear, see, or what's going on. But good to see that the president and the officials, more importantly of the state of Delaware, at least not just waving this off as if it was nothing, and that they have concern and showing support for the student athletes that had to go through this disturbing event. And again, this is not about racism that many of us have seen, viewed,
and
dealt with,
and been a participant
of ourselves, but in fact of making sure that we support the young ladies that had to deal with it. Many different ethnic groups, for that matter, had to deal with this, not only in terms of those in darker hue or African American, Black Americans, or Black, whichever term you prefer, in terms of that. So I wanted to put it on the front. I don't know if you wanted to speak on it.
Yeah, because I have not had a chance to get back on the air since this incident happened. Y'all have to excuse me if my head flies and turns on the swivel doing this thing, because you know when you're at a baseball facility, you do have to keep your head on the swivel.
Oh, you better.
As we found out earlier, a ball hit about a foot from one of our workers here today.
Yeah, and then hit somebody else.
And then we had one hit somebody else. But no, first of all, I am so happy that the 8 teams that we have here in Montgomery, Alabama, did not have any incidents getting here to Montgomery, and I pray to God that they don't have anything that comes up as they head back home to their home cities. Let's start off with that, number one. Number two, and I'm probably going to spend this a little bit differently than everybody else has, but that man was elected, Dr. Cavil. He's the sheriff of a county in Georgia. Makes you wonder, about the citizens of that county, not all of the citizens, but at least 50.1% of those citizens who decided to elect this person in that position. And although elections only happen every 4 years, and I do believe this is an election year in Georgia. I don't know if anybody's running against him in that particular county, but the citizens of that county need to hold him accountable because they put this man in this position. Basically, they hired him, they can fire him,
right,
via their vote. So that's the one thing that's yes, this man may run a department that is questionable and allow his officers to do questionable things. But the accountability, yes, Delaware State has every right to be mad and do what they need to do. But the accountability need to come from the citizens of that county in Georgia to make a stand. We don't want our county to have that reputation as that place on I-95. We don't want people to drive around the county and not feel comfortable stopping in our county to purchase gas, to purchase food, to vacation in that area. We want people coming to our county, spending tax dollars. And people, if you want to hit them people where it hurt, yeah, we could scream, cry, holler all you want to. Don't spend your money there. Don't let them get those tax dollars. Then maybe they'll understand how serious this is to us.
Great perspective. Last thing I'll say before we go to this break and get back into some sporting action, Delaware Attorney General asked for federal civil rights review of DSU bus incident. That is also DelawareOnline.com. With that, this is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We'll be right back and get into some more action because it's heating up in terms of these diamonds. As you hear a little bat, a single, as Kentucky State has men on first and second as they are in the top of the fifth. A lot of good action going on here. Again, we'll give you some updates of what's going on. SWAC tournament, MEAC softball tournaments. And then you got some big games coming up this week in terms of SWAC baseball as things start to close out. And the MEAC as well, close races. So it's fascinating. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this quick break. Dr. Cavill's inside the HBCU Sports Lab.
Authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta will find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant. Authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door. Tell them mama hungry.
The top HBCU programs in the nation come to Montgomery, Alabama's Riverwalk Stadium this May 11th through 14th for the Black College World Series. The best Black college baseball teams in the NCAA Division II and the NAIA will battle for Black baseball's ultimate prize. Games will be streamed live at www.mybcsn.net. Tickets are available now online at www.blackcollegechampionships.com.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil's Inside HBCU Sports Lab. As we're getting into some of the action here, let's just get into a couple of news and notes that's out there. Henry Frazier III named Virginia State's football coach back on the gridiron. It's good to see Coach Frazier back. We talked about that a little bit. That's in the CIAA, obviously. Kortne Gosha landed on his feet. Joins Tulane, Senior Associate Athletic Director, Tallahassee Democrat. HBCU Sports give you an update there. What kind of updates did you have that are going on that you want to share outside of that? I know a lot of your time has been right here, putting in them line hours, so I don't know anything else outside of that that you might even want to share before we get into some of this softball and baseball talk.
And you guys have to forgive me because it's kind of hard to hear, even though we are standing next to each other. You're talking about Kortne Gosha, comments about Kortne Gosha.
Yeah, any thoughts, just any news, whether you want to talk about some of those things with Frazier, Henry Frazier III, Virginia State, or Kortne Gosha landing on his feet at Tulane, or any other direction you wanted to go. I was saying you can take it any way you want in terms of what's some of the hottest news out there that you have on your mind right now.
Well, the one thing about Henry Frazier is, the timing. Reggie Barlow left, almost 2 months ago now? It's been a long search to find a football coach, and you always have to question how far behind the eight ball a coach is in his first year coming in this late into the recruiting season. Obviously the transfer portal is closed. One thing you don't have to worry about any players leaving because the transfer portal is closed.
Right.
So that's the one good thing, but on the flip side, that a lot of players have already found a home. So obviously you're not looking at the transfer portal. When you look at the high school route, most kids are committed and basically ready to go to camp in about 3-4 weeks as soon as high school graduation occurs, which in most places are occurring within the next 2 weeks. So how far behind the eight ball will Virginia State be, and what are the expectations of the Virginia State fans this year? And it's good to see Kortne Gosha land on his feet. So with him landing on his feet, I think it's good for him to be in a position to take a step backwards and learn from his mistakes at Florida A&M, improve on it, so that hopefully next time when he gets the opportunity to lead an athletic department, be it at an HBCU or HWCU, he will have a longer tenure and a successful tenure in his next position of leadership.
Let's transition to the sports on the field a little bit. Tyson Foods, Black College World Series, obviously kicked off yesterday. 4 games were played. We're playing the third one of today. 2 were played this morning. What has been your biggest thoughts in terms of this matchup that features a championship game that will have the NIA team out of that bracket facing the NCAA Division II team out of the bracket? 4 teams that everybody's heard about now in terms of Albany State, Miles College. Tried to put together what's going on there. Kentucky State, obviously.
And Bluefield State.
And then Bluefield State.
Yes.
Kentucky State and Bluefield State, as we told you, are playing now. Kentucky State, to give you an update on that, is up 5-0 now. And then NIA teams, you have the Talladega, you have Florida Memorial, Edward Waters.
And Russ College.
And Russ College that played last night, big games. What are your thoughts on some of those games?
Well, first of all, the action on the field has been pretty good and competitive. Some of the scores have looked a little off. If you just look at the score without understanding the difference in the score, or watching the video of the game, then you would understand where the it doesn't make sense to you. You know, you had a blowout, a quote unquote blowout last night. Kentucky State and Albany State. Score wound up being 12-2. But the score was 4-2 going into the bottom of the 7th inning. Albany State opens up. They score 8 runs in the bottom of the 7th inning to create the 10-run rule. And the other thing that I've noticed is this tournament is going to be not a war of attrition. Now, do we have anything as super attrition? Because that's what this is going to be. You've got 4 teams that are coming off of some type of conference tournament. Obviously, Kentucky State, Miles, and Albany State coming off of the SIAC conference tournament. With Albany State playing in the championship game, and Miles playing in the semifinals on this past Sunday. So their pitching was off on day one, where you would normally start possibly your ace on day one. They did not start their aces on day one, but got the W's. And then you have Edward Waters coming off the Continental Athletic Conference tournament. And also, 5 teams. I stand corrected. Talladega coming off the Southern States tournament. So who has the arms to compete for this national championship? Baseball tournaments are about arms to start with.
Yeah.
But
in depth of arms, too.
Yeah, depth of arms, tournaments
arms
after tournaments.
And
it's been interesting to see how these coaches get into certain situations. Do they go to their bullpen? Do they let this guy continue to pitch? Or do they bring in a two-way player to try to eat up some innings? Because realistically, every time you take the mound in this World Series, this may be your last time pitching this year, especially if you're a starter, because I doubt very seriously if any starter will come back and pitch a second time in this World Series. If so, they may be able to get an inning in on championship game just to help out, but they're not going to do anything significant, even though they're going to have about 9 months to let that arm rest.
Yeah, day one, you've seen Florida Memorial defeat Talladega. You've seen Miles College defeat Albany.
Miles, Albany State defeated Kentucky State. Miles defeated Bluefield
State. And then, obviously, last night you seen Edward Waters beat Russ. Then today you seen Edward Waters as they lost their second consecutive game to Florida Memorial. As they were coming out of their winning bracket, I should say.
Yes, they were being around.
Then you have Miles College defeating Albany State. So that's the winners going out of it.
Yeah.
But let's get into it.
One last thing. This game that we're talking about right here, Kentucky State and Bluefield State, somebody checking out their hotel in the morning. I'm just going to put it out there.
Yeah, if you like being out and having some fun, you want to put up some of these runs. That'll keep you fighting. Great point made there. Let me give a shout-out before we go to our first half of the show commercials. Wendell Davis, up here in your parts, Wendell. I know you down in Tuscaloosa. I'm over here in Montgomery, not too far away from Brother Davis. Michael Knox, Chuck Hunt, always in the building. Dr. Roderick Holmes. Roderick Holmes says, can he take his final early? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Always. Take it early. Karen Griffin. This is field work. Yes, it is. Good field work.
Excuse me, safe at first. In the house. Play.
Big play at the plate. Safe, as you hear the fans cheering a little bit out here. Getting it in, seeing some good action, mixing it up. Who else we have? Chris Tucker is in here checking us out. Virginia University is in the house, as he said. Arthur Grant Sr. Brother Brian Gautier's in here. FAMU representing Chad Cooper. I see you. I see you. With that, let's get into the break as the lab listeners get in here, and we'll mix it up. Again, we'll get into some softball updates. A lot of action on the softball things as they are fighting for championships and trophies in softball across the board. And then we'll give you some of those final updates for the SWAC. Big matchups coming up this week when you have, especially in the West Division, as things have tightened up a little bit. You have Prairie going over to Southern for a 3-game set, obviously. Texas Southern going over Grambling. We'll get into those matchups and see what Drew thinks about some of those key matchups. Let's get into our break, and we'll be back as Kentucky State gets out the inning, and they still hold a lead. Bluefield State does push one across, as now Kentucky State is winning 5-1 as we go into the top of the 6th. This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We'll be right back after this break.
Are you ready? It's time. The inaugural Urban NerdCon is coming to Montgomery, Alabama, July 29th through the 31st. Blurs, nerds, and geeks from across the universe will converge on the capital city to see celebrity guests such as The Last Dragon, Tybach, Megan Tandy, and voice actor Dave Fenoy.
Hey, how you doing? I'm voice actor Dave Fenoy with a shout out to all my geeks, freaks, and urban nerds. Just want to let you know I'm going to be there, and I want to meet you at the Urban NerdCon Gaming and Cosplay event. It's happening July 29th through the 31st in Montgomery, Alabama. Hope you want to meet me as much as I want to meet you.
So join us by visiting theUrbanNerdCon.net for ticket and vendor information. This will be the premier blurred event in the universe. TheUrbanNerdCon.net. Our heroes, our villains, our stories, everyone's con. See you there.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
For 200 years, Montgomery, Alabama has been making history by people who had the courage to stand up for change. Today, this riverfront city has been reborn, embracing the past and looking forward to the future. From the National Memorial for Peace and Justice to the stage of the Alabama Shakespeare Festival. This is where history was and is made. We are proud to call Montgomery home, and together, we can be the change.
Press the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We're on the road, Riverwalk Stadium in Montgomery, Alabama, home of where the Biscuits play. But right now, we have the Tyson Food Black College World Series 2022 version. 4 teams out of the NCAA, 4 teams out of the NCAA Division II. And as we said, we're here, and we have Kentucky State up on Bluefield State 5-1 in the top of the 6th. With that, let's get into some softball, as we promised the people. Claflin won the CIAA. Tuskegee won the SIAC. As you said, they're right across us. Give us an update on both Claflin and Tuskegee and tell us where some updates as they are in the NCAA Division II tournament.
Yes, they are in the NCAA Division II tournament. And let's start off with Claflin, since I don't want to sound like a homer. They were defeated by Seton Hill today, 3-0. And for Claflin, try to get to the box score. There we go.
You talk about that Claflin. They came out of the CIAA and really did well in terms of winning that tournament. and fall off. So now they're into that NCAA Division II action. What do you have?
Well, it's a pretty competitive game. They gave up 1 in the first. They gave up an additional 2 runs in the 4th inning, and that was it for Claflin. For Seton Hill. Looking at the stats, let's see, Claflin had of course, they were shut out on 3 hits, struck out 8. They struck out 8 times in this game.
What was the final score?
3-0. Left two on base. Did Claflin, and for Seton Hill, they scored 3 runs on 5 hits. Doc, you can't put this one on the pitcher. 3 runs on 5 hits. You know, she pretty much did her job.
Yeah,
3 runs on 5 hits. And it looks like both pitchers did their job.
Yeah, no
you know,
doubt.
8 hits in the
Especially
total.
if you shut somebody down, you really did your job.
Yeah.
But both of them really good, well pitched game. Just couldn't push any across. Claflin. It is the good thing. It's a double elimination tournament, so Claflin has another shot to kind of come out of what we call the loser bracket.
Yes.
We see that. But let's get in SIC Tuskegee.
Tuskegee.
Right here in our backyard. They in Montgomery over here playing who?
Auburn University of Montgomery.
UAM?
Which is about 10, maybe 10 miles from where we are right now, if that, probably closer to that. And UM came out to a fast start, scored a pair of runs in the opening inning, and 3 more in the second to take a 5-0 lead into the 3rd inning. Tuskegee Golden Tigers ended the shutout bid in the 3rd inning after a Warhawk error allowed Michaela Bates to reach first base. She later scored on an RBI double from Kendra Gibbons.
Good points. Let's get into some MEAC softball as their tournament kicked off Wednesday. SWAC kicked off Tuesday, so we'll give you some updates there. But in the MEAC, 9 a.m. game, number 5 North Carolina Central defeats Maryland Eastern Shore 10-2. Game 2 featured number 3 Norfolk State as they defeated Coppin State 8-1. So thus far, it was going in terms of the ranked teams. You had the slight upset when you have a 5 seed beating a 4 seed, but you can understand how that will happen. Top 8 teams go. Only 8 teams in terms of the member of the MEAC. At Game 3 was number 1 Morgan State makes a statement as they win their opener over North Carolina Central that came out of that first game. They beat them 28-0. 28-0. 4 touchdowns scored in this softball game. Yeah, it was amazing. And people are saying this Morgan State team, they have went undefeated in the conference before, back in like late 80s, I believe it was. But people are thinking that this is one of the best teams, not only in the MEAC scene, but certainly for Morgan State. Game number 4 featured the number 2 team, Howard University, 11 over Norfolk State, 8. That was 8 innings, so it had to go to extra innings to get that in there. Then you got the Thursday games, which you'll see that came today that were played thus far. You had Game 5, which featured Coppin State in the loser bracket over North Carolina Central, 5-3. Then you had Norfolk State putting the end of the season for Maryland Eastern Shore, 4-0. Morgan State gets in the winners brackets, and they defeat Howard 12-5. So they didn't score as much runs, but they're still putting a lot of runs on the board, holds Howard to 5, so they win that. So that gives you the matchup for Friday. Game 8 will feature Coppin State and Norfolk State out of the loser bracket. Then you have Howard that falls into loser bracket, so they'll play the winner of Game 8 in a loser-take-all common. Morgan State, with their 2 victories, now are in the driver's seat as they go directly to the championship game, and that is Saturday, May the 14th. Morgan State will play the winner of their Game 9, which will be Howard again against the winner of Coppin State, Norfolk State. Interesting. What are your thoughts in terms of the MEAC? It's hard to say if anything other than Morgan State Bears. Maybe Howard has a chance, but I don't know.
Yeah, but you know, Howard has had a pretty good team, and it's tournament time. The big difference between softball and baseball, you can win a softball tournament with 1 in a possible. You know, like a game of spades. To win a baseball tournament, you need a solid 3, preferably 4, to really win a baseball tournament. So that's the big difference between softball and baseball.
Very good.
Can somebody who can knock whose ace out of the circle?
Right.
Once you knock the ace out of the circle, you got a chance.
Yeah. That hump. That's a good point when you talk about that. Let's switch over to the SWAC. some interesting matchup. This is the SWAC. You talked about the MEAC in their new format with 8 teams now as a conference. You go to the SWAC with 12 members, but you have the top 8 go to the tournament. So that means the pool to get into that top 4 in the East or the top 4 in the West has become deeper, and you've seen that with some of the action. It starts off with the number 1 seed, Alabama State, facing off against Grambling State as they go 10-2, and I should say Alabama State was actually a number 2 seed. They get it done and defeat Grambling State 10-2. Then you go to Prairie View. They have a classic matchup with FAMU, first time as they go in the softball tournament. They win 4-3 in terms of that, just edging off FAMU, and it looks like Prairie View's living right, and you'll see a little more as we talk about again. Texas Southern, which was the number 1 seed, they start the tournament off right. They defeat Jackson State 5-0, shutting them out in their first matchup on Tuesday. Then on Tuesday, you also had the number 1 seed out of the East, which is Bethune-Cookman. They played a really close game, but they get it done as they defeat Southern 3-2 in terms of that matchup. So that's your first day. You get back into some of today's contest, if you would, in terms of what's going on. Let me give you some 8 updates in terms of today's contest as things match up, or I should say Wednesday's contest, because, again, SWAC starts on Tuesday. So yesterday contest got some things were interesting. Jackson State in the loser bracket, they defeat Grambling State 2-1 barbecue. You never like to see that in softball, baseball. You come in, as they like to say, Grambling is out. 10-3 as Jackson State stays alive in the loser bracket. Then you have a matchup between FAMU and Southern. That FAMU and Southern matchup, boy, they just don't like each other. It doesn't matter the sport, but it's interesting. This time it's Southern that gets the best of FAMU. FAMU the Rattlers, Lady Rattlers, 2-1 barbecue. First time in the tournament. It's always a challenge. They'll be back, talented team there. You have Alabama State. That surprises Texas Southern to some degree. It's the number 2 seed out of the East versus number 1 seed out of the West. And you always have this unique tournament when you talk about baseball and softball in the SWAC, where people are trying to look, is the East better or the West better? So you get these conversations, so it's always interesting to see this. But then you get a little payback in the West as you have the number 2 seed, Prairie View, giving the first loss to the number 1 seed in the East, Bethune-Cookman, 5-3, and that was a thriller. It comes down to the last out for Prairie View as they are in the 7th. They get a runner on. They're down 3-2. Home run to right field, just gets over the fence. They take the lead 4-3. The next runner gets another home run, almost left center, if you would. Go up 5-3. They hold on to win the game 5-3 there. And then you have some key matchups today, which are fascinating, where you had the undefeated teams of Alabama State and Prairie View play, where you see Texas Southern loses to Jackson State in the second matchup. That was a game where Texas Southern gave up 5 runs early, and they've done that twice, but they fight their way back, but they still lose 8-7 to Jackson State in terms of the matchup. But then you have Prairie View and Alabama State in a classic matchup. Again, it goes down to the 7th inning. This time, Prairie View pushes 1 across. They're tied at 1, to get that scratch. It goes in the 10th inning. Alabama State goes up in the top, right, to go up 2-1, obviously in that matchup, as it looks like they're going to get it done. But Prairie View in the bottom pushes across 2 to win, 3-2. In the 10th, as now they are in the championship game, looking to see who's coming out of the loser bracket, which will feature Southern, Jackson State, and Alabama State are fighting their way through it. Jackson State and Southern playing now. We'll give you some updates maybe on those scores to let you know how that's going. A lot I said there. What are your thoughts in terms of the SWAC?
So I just want to make sure I got this correct. Texas Southern, after their dominating regular season, is at the house?
Yeah, they're out. They're out.
I just want to make sure I got that right.
Yeah, you're right. Bethune-Cookman had really solid season.
But it wasn't what Texas Southern did, though.
Correct.
Yes.
In terms of literally dominating that side of the conference. And this has been a trend for Texas Southern, just to catch you up a little bit there, to your point. This is like their 12th win. Out of that 12 years where they won the West, they've only won the SWAC championship once. And so they've been able to get into the tournament really playing hot, but just can't find a way to get it done in the tournament. So it's fascinating to see what's in the problem there. And this is two different coaches that have dominated the West can do it. Prairie is one of those teams in one of those years that got it done. And they're the team, when they are hot and they go to the tournament, they get it done. They do seem to find a way to get the championship versus what you see with Texas Southern. Is this another year? We'll see. They're in commanding position, but you got a lot of teams that can find a way to come back and maybe get you. Any other additional thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think the one thing that I've found interesting about the SWAC baseball and softball is the fact that they don't play a scheduled crossover as you like, where you bring all teams.
And they've been arguing about that a little bit.
Bring all teams together in one city. Obviously, that saves on travel costs instead of you having to go to all these different cities and play everybody. The one time East versus West plays each other, you know, softball is easy. You could play the other 6 teams on the other side within a 3-day time span. Now, baseball would be a little more challenging to do it in baseball because of the pitching depth and everything. But it would be nice to see it because the first time some of these teams see each other is when somebody sends somebody home.
Right.
I.e. the tournament. You know, there are certain people who will schedule each other. Alcorn, Jackson State.
In the middle. Yeah.
You know, Valley, maybe.
You'll see a midweek game.
Yeah, you'll see some big game. But FAMU and Texas Southern, Prairie View,
that's right.
They're not going to see each other whenever the tournament is.
That's
Same
right.
thing with the Bethune-Cookman. You know,
and there's been some talk about the coaches, and they're looking at it. Obviously, you go through what the coaches want, what the ADs think, and ultimately what the presidents, chancellors will vote on. A lot of times that's about financial situations versus the competitive balance of seeing teams and getting a different experience. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I can give you an update. It looks like Southern will be going home. It's currently in the top of the 4th. A couple of innings to play, but the score is 11-0. Jackson State in the bottom of the 1st put in 8 runs. And in a lot of ways pushed what you would think would be enough to get through it. So it looks like Southern's in some trouble. Jackson State is still pushing across this 1 out in the top of the 4th. As Southern are at least trying to see if they can push some runners. They have 1st and 3rd, 1 out. So we'll see what they're able to do, but it looks like Jackson State is in good position.
He is out. Oh, they called him safe.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
3rd, really
First,
good.
That was a good throw, good tag. He got in just under the tag. I'm sorry to cut you off, Doc, but this is what happened when you have live action while you're trying to do a podcast.
And that's basically what I wanted to give the update. So we're going to go into our break and come back and talk a little bit about baseball, some of the key matchups that are going on here, and give some people some updates of what to keep the eyes on as we go forward. Again, you can see everything on YouTube in terms of my JBN1. You can go to the website, mybcsn.net, to see some updates in terms of this Black College World Series. Some really good games being played, talent all over the field. And these are teams that you may not see very often on because of the television exposure, but this is a chance to get it done, so check it out. This is Dr. Ville's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, sitting in for Mike Washington. Charles Bishop is none other than clinical professor Drew, putting in a lot of work himself this weekend. So let's take this last 7th inning stretch since we're at the ballpark. We'll be right back to give you some final updates in terms of what's going on next. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this break.
One bite of 100% Angus beef ballpark frank, and you'll say, hello, summer. Oh yeah, it's ballpark season.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service with Slow Burn. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge featuring a meticulous curated collection of premium cigars. It's more than a mobile lounge. It's an environment and an experience rich in history, luxury, and personality. An elegant extension of any celebration occasion. It's the perfect escape and meeting place a space where you can relax or enjoy a shared passion. Have Slow Burn plan your next big event, or before you are planning to celebrate your win over your athletic rival. You can shop our collections at www.slowburnwaco.com.
But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, yeah. And who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach you a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We get back into it. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about track and field championship. Shared earlier in terms of what Prairie was able to do, double dip twice, if you would, because they did it indoor, men's and women. Then they show up and show out and get it done on the outdoor. Not always that you get to double dip in terms of some teams, which turns the page. We go in the Big South as they ran a tournament a little late in this week. Everybody just figured A&T was going to get it done. On the women's side, they do just that. But also the second place team was Hampton. So North Carolina A&T and the Hampton women's finished first and second in terms of the Big South, 4 by 100 in terms of getting it done in a lot of ways. But on the men's side, major surprise for a lot of folks, A&T finishes second. A little bit of a controversy there in terms of the last rate, maybe just a little bit in terms of one team getting disqualified. And so instead of what would have been a three-way tie between Campbell, A&T, and forget the third team. But anyway, a team was disqualified. And so
High Point.
Huh?
It was High Point.
High Point, and they actually win it. I'm glad
Yes.
you put that in there. Is that High Point wins it because team was disqualified, which means that A&T falls a point short on the men's side. So both A&T and Hampton, as you know, are leaving the Big South, wanted to take the trophies with you. Somebody said on the men's side, not so fast. But let's get in a little bit of the baseball talk, where we get into some of these key matchups this week, starting with the MEAC, as it's a close race in there in terms of the top three teams. Fighting out Coppin State on the top, just a one-game lead over the next person. But you got the Coppin State-Norfolk State matchup. Norfolk State is struggling a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see if Coppin State can take advantage of it and maybe stretch it out a little bit. Maryland, Eastern Shore, and Delaware State, they're right in the midst. Can they find a way to stay in it, or can they, one, double the other one? We've seen these games where you've seen they keep splitting these 2-2 series, or when somebody's behind, they find a way to get 3 to 4. You hadn't found too many of the sweeps, and I guess that's really hard to do when you play 4. It's hard enough with 3, but fascinating in terms of what's going on in the MEAC. Any thoughts of the baseball? Can somebody pull it out, or are they going to continue to kind of ask the question that you like to ask sometimes, being MEAC-ish? Can they make a final thought? What are your thoughts on the MEAC baseball race?
Look, even though Norfolk State has had a season that has not been up to Norfolk State standards, it would not surprise me if Norfolk State is the MEAC representative in the NCAA regionals. You know, these teams really cannot get away from each other because they're so familiar with each other. They played each other. What is it? 2 times or 4 times in
4.
No, they got 4. They got a 4-game series. Is it just a home and home though?
Yeah, they home and home. They go both
ways.
It's
just home and home for 4 games. For 4 games.
4 home, 4 games on the road.
8 times.
They
8 times within essentially an 8-week time period.
Right.
Well, a 6-week time period. Truthfully.
Yeah.
8 times within 6 weeks. I mean, I know exactly what you do. I know where you're going to hit the ball. I know when you're going to butt the ball. I know where you're going to pitch the ball. I know you're going to throw me this curveball right here in this count because they have too many analytics because of this. BIAC is not going to be relevant when it comes to tournament time. I hope they are, but realistically, I'm not excited about the Cavil. It's just that simple.
Let's go into baseball then in the SWAC.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, where it does get a little interesting. But we're going to start in the East, where now all of a sudden we talked about Bethune-Cookman at one time leading the East. Then it was Alabama State time, and they did it for a while. But a series this past weekend saw FAMU hosting Alabama State 1-2, and FAMU brought out the brooms. It's huge. Now they sit at the top the conference winning 7 straight games, 18-6. You have Alabama State at 16-7. They've lost 5 straight. And then you have Bethune-Cookman, 15-9. They won 1, and Jackson State at 10-15 as they lost 3 in terms of those matchups. Let me know what your thoughts in terms of the East. The matchups setting up this week are Alabama A&M at Bethune-Cookman. That's in Daytona Beach. So it'll be interesting there. You have Mississippi Valley State at Alabama State. This has been a game, Mississippi Valley's team, but they're just sitting at 4-7. They lost 8 straight. So you would think maybe Alabama State can right the ship a little bit, but it's one of the things where this is the time where you have to find a way to get the sweep. You're at home. You got to get it. You can't afford just to win the series if you want to stay in this race. Fascinating to see what's going on then. And then, obviously, you have Florida A&M at Jackson. We know what that rival is. Jackson State has struggled a little bit, but they're sitting in the 4th spot. They are just 2 games above Alabama A&M in terms of the win column. So just 1 behind Alabama is in the loss column. So that becomes an important series for Jackson State. The least try to get, a game. Obviously, if they can take 2 out of 3, sweep them, would be unheard of. They'd really be in the mix.
Who are we talking about?
Jackson State and FAMU.
Against who?
Yeah, that's kind of rival.
Okay.
So they're going to play. You can't take anything.
I don't want to hear all that talk about sweep.
Well, go ahead and tell me some more.
No, seriously, though, Dr. Cavil. Are my Rattlers not the streakiest team in the SWAC this year?
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen them win 2-3 series in a row, that they're losing the next 2 series in a row. So, which FAMU team is traveling to Jackson, Mississippi tomorrow? That is the question, because
and that is the SWAC now.
Say it again.
That is the SWAC now in terms of those tough road trips.
Yes.
Rivals, games that you think you should win, you play a little bit up. Will the team get up?
Exactly.
Kind of get you going. Good
exactly.
point. I love that.
But say we don't know which FAMU team is going to be in Jackson this Saturday, and all of these series, and this is just my personal opinion. All of these series are ripe for sweeps if the favorite comes out and wins. I'm not talking about a 5-4 victory in day one. I'm talking about if they come out and dominate on day one.
Right.
I think all of the favorites could win. The one that's going to be interesting. Now I am going to throw this. I think Alcorn's going to get 2 out of 3 against Pine Bluff.
Oh, interesting. Good.
I'm just going to throw something out there.
Let me do that. Let's go into the West since you talk about it a little bit and set it up in terms of records. Fascinating when you got Prairie View at 18-6. They lost their last game. They lost their first series of the season to Grambling at home, of all places, 2-3. This is after they swept Grambling early in the year. So fascinating to see what's going on there. So Grambling pulls within 2, and they have a 16-8 record when you talk about there. They've lost 1 as they lost a midweek game. You have Texas Southern sitting 3 games back of Prairie View, but just a game back of Grambling State sitting at 15-9, 24-21. They lost the midweek game after they swept Alcorn this past weekend. You have Southern that is tied with Texas Southern, which means they're also 3 games back of Prairie View. And you have 2 games back of Grambling sitting at 15-9, 18-28. They also lost a midweek game after sweeping Pine Bluff. Setting up some of these matchups that are interesting. You started off with one, Arkansas Pine Bluff at Alcorn State. But where it starts to get a little more interesting is the fact that you have Texas Southern at Grambling. Just told you what that looks like. Interesting to see where that goes. Grambling is playing some really good baseball. As I said, taking 2 out of 3. They lost 2 out of 3 2 weeks ago to Southern, though. So this is a team that's a little streaky themselves, as you talked about that. But the big matchup in a lot of people's eyes is going to be that Prairie View Southern. Can Southern turn on the magic as they do late in the season? They got swept by Prairie View, which was Prairie View's first sweep of the season. Yeah, they had won a series, but the first time they had a sweep. So this time you have Prairie View at Southern. It switches. I know on the schedule.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Was this the game they got flip-flopped because of the weather? This is the game they got flip-flopped.
So Southern went to Prairie View earlier because of the rain, and so now Prairie View has to go back to Southern, which is an oddity in the schedule that changes up a little bit. So it's fascinating. Can Prairie View get one to hold on to a lead? They can't get swept in this, or it really goes for naught in a lot of ways. And what gets really fascinating is sets it up for the final weekend. I know we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, which is a Prairie View and Texas Southern matchup. So these weekend, games between Texas Southern and Grambling are really fascinating, and Prairie and Southern this weekend. Tell me your thoughts.
Correct me if I'm wrong, with the schedules swapping and everything, Prairie is home the last 3 series of the season, if I remember that correctly.
No, they would be home this weekend, and then they go on the road to McGregor Park in Houston for the end of the season. But now, because of the swap, they've played their last 6 games on the road.
Oh,
they
that's
travel
what
to Baton Rouge for this series,
then
they go to Houston for the rivalry game next weekend.
That's a hell of a way to
end
in the season.
We'll see if they medal, and you talking about whatever these 4 teams find a way to find the top. I will say this. Whoever finds a way at the top, they've earned it in terms of what they've done, at least in the division race.
But I don't care who finds a way at the top, because it is SWAC baseball tournament next week or in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
It would not surprise me if the 4 from one side or the other is in the championship game very easily.
Oh,
very
no
easy,
doubt. Great point.
Because the separation between 1 and 4 in the SWAC this year on a consistent basis is minimal, and the ones will probably get that victory, but if it does not surprise me that number 4 gets set, and if a 4 can knock off a 1 and upset the balance of the games in the SWAC, I think they're going to make a run. And that's on either side, east or west.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. This is going to be fascinating. As we go to the bottom of the 7 before we close up, we still have a game here. It's 5-2 now, with Kentucky State still leading Bluefield State. Again, we're going to the bottom of the 7 in the stretch. It is 5-2 in that matchup. Last thing here before you close it off, a perfect way to close it. You said that I've been following the SWAC for years. You used to be able to go in the tournament with just 5 teams in each division as the train starts to come across. We've seen this and love these baseball parks with these old theme parks with the trains coming by. You've seen the fact that you could get that 1 and 4 matchup, and the 4th team would usually struggle a lot just to get into the tournament. So you could pitch your 3rd. Sometimes you see coaches that would go with their midday pitcher 4th to save those arms and save that ace for that next matchup that really would set up a team if they could win those first 2 games. You can't do that any longer. That 4th team in each division is a solid team, as you see now. They're pushing to get in that 2nd and 3rd seed, and some of them, if you're talking about the West, they're only a series out of 1st place. So you go in the tournament now, you're going to pitch your ace in that first game. So it's going to be more about the depth, quality. Can you get the bats going?
Attrition.
So you're right. You could see attrition. So you could see a number 4 seed winning the conference, or at least going deep in the tournament and seeing what you saw in softball and having some exit, what we would perceive as early exits for the number 1 seed, even if the 4th team doesn't ultimately win it all, meaning a 2 or 3 seed can find a way to get a little bit of advantage because the number 1 seed finds their way out. That'll do it for us. Great comments. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab, College of HBCU Sports, with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Joining me today is none other than the clinical professor A.D. Drew. Thank you for helping me do this live at the Riverwalk Stadium here in Montgomery for the Tyson Foods Black College World Series. Again, thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday right here at 6 o'clock. If you're in the neighborhood, make sure you come out for some of these games here tomorrow. And then when you talk about, I like that you're putting out these for these programs, they can see that. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest in the news. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKenyattaCavil. That's DrKenyattaCavil. If you are in Montgomery or in the area, come on out this Friday, Saturday. See some good baseball. Relax yourself. Take some time off. You've had a long